Hi and welcome back. Today is going to be part one of the final assembly of the Nuremberg box that I've been working on for the last 20 weeks. As you can see, I've already attached the hinge blanks to the back plate of the lock. Now I need to fit those hinges to the hinge blanks that I braced into the top rim and have it so that it works smoothly and closes properly and locks in place, of course. If you remember in the last video, I was able to knock the two halves of the hinges together so that they could lock in place, and it was a really tight fit. And the reason I did that is so that I could use that assembly as a setup gauge to find the alignment of the hinges that I needed to rivet to the back plate. Now what I need to do is all the fine filing that allows the hinges to work smoothly. And if you've been watching this whole series, then this process is going to be very familiar to you. You start off by checking the fit, try to establish where metal needs to be removed, do a little bit of filing, check the fit again, and just repeat that process until you get the alignment that you want and you have a smooth range of motion from closing to fully open. And I've mentioned this several times in the past, but this is one of those steps that you can't rush. Just take your time, remove a little bit of metal, have a look, check the fit. If you can't figure out where something needs to come off or why something isn't lining up, walk away from it. Get a fresh perspective, come back, have another look. Sometimes you need to use a light to shine through the hinge to sort of get a clear picture of where something's touching. Do whatever you have to do, but you need to understand that these two pieces need to work perfectly together if you want to be able to open the lid of this box. Next, I need to attach the keyhole cover plate that I made earlier. This doesn't have any wards attached to it the way they normally do. This is just a pivot point to stabilize the key. I'm using my vice jig so I can clamp the lock plate horizontally and have it overhanging the edge. Then that's going to allow me to insert the key and turn it around and get the alignment right for the cover plate. I've already drilled a pivot hole for the key into the cover plate, so it's just a matter of moving it around until I get the key working properly. I'm using a narrow set of vice grips to lock the cover plate in place because that gives me enough room to drill the rivet holes that I need on either side of the vice grip. So what I'm basically doing is moving the cover plate around until the shaft of the key lines up perfectly at 90 degrees to the lock plate. And I'm checking that in two directions. And you can see here how it's lined up pretty well when you look at it from the top, but from the side the key is still at an angle, so the cover plate needs to move forward a little bit to straighten that out. And you can see how the cover plate being off slightly is causing some problems. The key is working the lock okay and it's spinning around, but because the cover plate is forcing the key to enter the lock at an angle, it's making it difficult to remove the key from the lock. To cover the pivot hole, I'm going to be attaching a thick decorative plate that's going to be riveted to the cover plate. This can be made out of anything. It just needs to be thick enough so that the end of the key can go into the cover plate and have a good bearing surface to work properly. I need to carve a hole in the back of this decorative cap so that the key can go right through the cover plate and have a good bearing surface. I'm not going to be able to use one drill to make this depression because the point of the drill is going to start piercing the cap before I get the depth that I need. So I've drilled 3 small holes to the full depth that I'm going to be working to, and I'm going to use cold chisels to carve out the rest of the material. As I mentioned earlier, this is just a decorative cap, so you don't see the pivot hole in the cover plate. So the shape of this depression can be anything you want. It just has to be large enough to not get in the way of the key. So I'm just using the drill holes that I made as a depth gauge, and then I'm sort of keeping the shape of the bevels on the decorative cap in mind, and I'm just carving kind of a rectangular hollowed out depression. To finish it off, I'm going to be using a small grinder head on my die grinder to smooth out all the chisel marks. I don't have room to put 2 rivets to lock this cap in place, so I'm going to be securing it in place with 1 rivet, and then I'm just going to use soft solder to lock it in place so it doesn't start spinning around. And once again, I'm just using a straight pin as a rivet to put all this together, and I'm going to be riveting into a counterboard hole so that I can file the surface flush and still have a rivet head sitting below the surface. So that's the lock mechanism totally finally done, and I'm just running the key through just to make sure that everything's fine and the lock mechanism itself is still working, because now is the last chance that I'm going to have to make any repairs or any adjustments. I know that the lock plate works, and it also fits into the inside rim of the box, so the only thing that's left to do is to actually wrap all of this in sheet metal, and I'll be doing that next week. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you have questions and you want to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at either one of the addresses that I have listed here. It may take me a couple of days, but I will get back to you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.